welcome back, everyone. It's great to see everyone here for day two, and huge welcome to you, Mustafa. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me, and welcome everybody in the room, and thanks for being here. And I hope it's been a useful 24 hours. It sounds like from Naria, everyone's as high energy as her, so that was pretty awesome to see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were just talking earlier that, we've got a fabulous audience, both in the room and online today. We've got about 1,500 global nonprofit leaders in the room. We've got a few thousand joining us online, and, we are tremendously grateful for everybody prioritising their time and resources to be with us, over these 2 days. It's a particularly tumultuous time in the sector, and, nonprofits are under tremendous pressure, more pressure than ever before, and I think it says a lot that people are here to learn more about technology and AI and what it can mean for the sector. And I know that that's something that is top of mind for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think we're all looking at the last few months of change, with huge concern and anxiety, but also recognizing that it's a transformation that is coming, and I think that's one of the things I've been focused on for many years, is just recognizing that we are about to go through, I think, one of the most significant transitions in our lifetimes in terms of how technology is going to change the way we work, the way we communicate, the way we organize ourselves. And so the most important thing to do there is to really just confront that reality and educate ourselves in the best way we can around how to take advantage of it.
So perhaps, backing up a little bit, as Naria said, you've had a really interesting career, and, you've spanned working sort of grassroots nonprofit work. You've founded a nonprofit, you co-founded DeepMind, you've written a fabulous book, now helping shape AI at Microsoft, and really, really for the world. And we're seeing AI transforming industries at a really unprecedented pace. But how do you see AI's potential to tackle some of the the world's biggest challenges that we're seeing, whether it's poverty, whether it's education, healthcare?
Yeah, I mean, I think I guess maybe it's helpful to take a step back and just really look at the big picture. What is the thing that has driven so much of the value in our world and really created civilization? It is this power that we have in our minds to make sense of complicated environments, make predictions about how those environments might unfold, and then creatively intervene in those trajectories. And that sounds very abstract, but it is kind of, in essence, the fundamental feature that has enabled us to, create the world of science that has led to all the impact in technology, that has improved, on every metric you can think of over 2 centuries, human well-being and order and happiness in our civilization. And so, to me, the attraction over the last 20 years of working on AI is to try to, take what is powerful and beautiful about that and turn it into, a resource and a tool that is available to everybody, both at the individual level, the organizational level, at the government level, because it's that engine that has driven progress and productivity, and we're now about to make that, almost zero marginal cost relative to the kind of impact that it can have. Is kind of remarkable. So that's, I think, what's happening in this moment.
I love that. And yesterday, actually, when I was doing some welcome remarks, I actually had a slide with a quote of yours that I really love, where you said, "Technology for its own sake counts for nothing. What matters is how it feels to people and how it impacts societies." And I think non-profits deeply understand this, because their work is very much about people. It's about relationships, it's about trust, it's about impact. And how do we think about leveraging all the goodness and the power of AI to really enhance these qualities, as opposed to potentially undermining them?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of another inflection point, if you like. For the last few centuries, maybe even 400 years post-Enlightenment, the goal has been to sort of unlock new inventions as fast as possible. And, we almost without regard for consequences. We knew, we were just sort of overwhelmed with breakthroughs in science that was clearly, benefiting everybody. And now I think we're going to have to make some important decisions about the rate at which we unlock those breakthroughs and how they get deployed and who gets access to them. And I think we collectively as a species have learned so much over the last few decades of how technology impacts us really well and where it causes third-degree effects that we don't like. And so I think this time around we have to be hypersensitive to those third-degree consequences and be really in tune with how does this actually affect people day to day? What does it make them feel? For too long, I think, in tech, the objective has been a very kind of simple optimization problem. Does it make something more efficient, right? Does it improve accuracy? And in some ways, that's very important, but probably too simplistic for where we're headed now. I mean, these are highly emotionally intelligent systems that are capable of lasting, meaningful relationships that are going to be highly interactive and very consequential for individual lives, for culture, for society. And I think that is an important frame for thinking about how we actually shape this stuff, because we do have collectively a massive opportunity to shape it. Our collective values really will change, how things look by 2030 or 2035. And I think that's where we should be focusing our attention.
Yeah, and with the huge opportunity that's coming with this, it feels like just, new innovations almost, it feels like every week, there remains these complicated issues, which, you just touched on. And one of the things that, I know that nonprofits think about is that, is data. And, AI is only as good as the data that it learns from. And so how do we ensure that AI is equitable and doesn't reinforce existing biases?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I feel, I think, justifiably optimistic on this front. When you look back at the last 4 or 5 years of progress in AI, it's pretty clear that with each order of magnitude new compute that you add, so as you put 10 times more data and compute into the hopper, you actually get models which aren't just more accurate, they're easier to control. So they're more responsive to product design, essentially, which should also be understood as values design. So it's no longer the case that there's a one-to-one mapping between bad data in and bad data out. Like that was a sort of old framing from 3 or 4 years ago. In fact, we largely, I think have made so much progress on the bias question today that it's now up to people who use the technology, and actually deploy it day to day to stylistically control how it responds in different settings, right? Which is a very, very significant breakthrough. It's not like these are sort of just going to be out of control. And I think we see this, in multiple settings. This, last, 2 years ago, people would say, well, these models are never going to be emotionally intelligent. They're just going to be factually accurate. They're going to have really good IQ. It's very clear now that they're actually kinder, more empathetic, more disciplined, more even-handed, more respectful, more boundaried, actually, than, someone else might be in a very high-octane situation where a user is, wanting to explore a very sensitive topic to do with race or gender or immigration. And actually, these models do an incredible job of handling those very complex, long conversations. So I think it's an indication that the raw materials, in these LLMs are of such high quality now that the real challenge for us, once again, is as individuals and organizations that use them and put them into practice, figuring out what do we want? What are our boundaries? What are our organization's values? And I'm pretty confident that they'll be able to, the models will be able to reflect those.
And I think that speaks to, the broad topic of diffusion and how important it is that, we try and get this technology and the skills to use it into, the hands of people around the world, and especially, this audience that can then help us think about, the ways to leverage this technology in the best possible ways. And, as we think about AI enabling non-technology users to build solutions, I think that can be really transformational. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the diffusion story has never been faster and cheaper compared to any other technology. Not radio, not TV, not electricity, not cars. I mean, we've basically gone from, these models costing $1 billion for 2 or 3 private companies to be able to build 5 years ago to now being available to absolutely everybody. I mean, GPT-3 is now available in open source at the same standard, and it can sit on your phone 3 years later. So we've never seen a rate of diffusion faster than this in any other technology, to go from absolute peak to wide access. And that's actually very, very encouraging, because in addition to the rate of diffusion coming down, the rate of complexity of use has come down, right? So just in a prompt with 3 paragraphs, you can stylistically control it. You can give it a specific bounded task of a scope of activity that you want. And you can actually experiment with that in 10 minutes, writing a prompt, seeing the output, executing it on your own private data through RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, and then iterate. And so that feedback cycle, you don't have to be an engineer anymore. You don't even have to be a product manager. You don't have to have any expertise whatsoever, specialist expertise in technology. So I think that is like way beyond the low-code, no-code excitement that we've had over the last few years, that anybody can build a website or an app, which is also awesome. So I think that's very empowering, because I'm not a computer scientist, right? And I have spent like 15 or 20 years learning the language of computer science and learning to work with people in machine learning, and really getting my PhD in production, like, hands-on working with people. And now there are plenty of people just like me who don't need to go through any of that sort of 15 years experience. They can really just get in the weeds straight away. I think that's very, very exciting, from addressing this question of, what are the values of this technology and how do we shape it? And so, my sort of major encouragement is that people adopt it very, very quickly, integrate it as a primary part of your workflow. Should be one of the first things that you think every day. Just as you have an instinct to go to email, you should have an instinct to go to, pick a chatbot or an AI or an underlying model that you prompt. Get your hands on it, because it is like sculpture. You have to get your hands dirty, it has to go wrong, you have to make mistakes, you have to get an intuition for what it's good at and what it's not. And just one more thing on that. In order to get a good intuition of the performance of a model, I always suggest to people, pick a topic that you know lots about. Like, what is your, favorite band that you know inside out, or your professional expertise, and have a really long, drawn-out conversation with each one of the models. Because what you'll see is moments of surprise and delight, because it will teach you something really niche and cool, and then moments of elementary errors. And that's important too, because then you'll see the boundaries and limitations, you'll see the quirks, you'll see the slightly different personality styles, the different formatting. And I think that that's just an easy way to get started and get some familiarity with what these things can do.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the importance of AI skilling, which we were talking a little bit about earlier, and it's going to be really key. Both AI fluency. I think everybody's going to need some degree of AI fluency, whatever role they have. But I think there's so much that we need to learn about, like, what are the AI skills of the future in terms of AI engineering, AI systems engineering. I think we still need to learn a lot about what those are.
Yeah, and now everybody is going to have a very personalized, highly accurate, basically a co-pilot or an AI in your pocket that is a world expert on every topic. So the barrier to entry to learning and knowledge has literally never been lower. You no longer need to go through 10 blue links and browse on the web and parse different information, hierarchies, and read, third-party content. You can really get it in a style that is optimized for your, learning, and everyone wants to learn slightly differently.
I had a couple of people yesterday asking and talking about deep research and just even how transformational that's been. Can you just say a little bit about that development?
Yeah, I mean, it's magical. I mean, it really does feel remarkable. Just the length and the way that knowledge is organized, I think is, it's close to what I would expect from a, sort of PhD researcher in terms of how thorough and structured the knowledge is. The other thing that I think is very cool that is worth people checking out is, I don't know, maybe going on YouTube rather than doing it yourself, but just looking at the chain of thought reasoning in some of these models. So chain of thought is this inner monologue where before giving an answer, the model asks itself a series of questions and runs through a bunch of reasoning steps to help develop the appropriateness of the final answer that it gives. It's kind of like yes, this inner monologue or working memory. And it is staggering. Like, I think it is as important a breakthrough as the arrival of GPT-3. I think it's the next thing, because you can start to see why a certain output has been produced and how did it trade off these different priorities with respect to its stylistic guidance, right? So it's referring back to what was my teaching, what are the rules of the road, what are my boundaries, what is this person looking for in this setting, what had they asked for previously, and what should I infer about how that ask has now changed. So you can start to see all the components that are going into the reasoning mix, and I think, and then it produces a much better quality output most of the time. And then I think over time, you'll be able to, as a designer and user of these technologies, tweak that inner monologue. So it'll come back to you in the middle of producing a deep research output and check in with you and be like, was this what you were looking for? Or would you prefer something more like that? Do you like lots of images, or would you like it structured in bullet points? Or how about I produce a podcast for you? So before producing that high quality output, it'll check in with you and calibrate. And that's where it will start to feel like a true partner. That's what I mean by AI companion. To me, everyone's going to have an AI companion, this kind of conciliary, this aid, this coach, you know, a thought partner for helping you to kind of navigate life.
I remember hearing you speak maybe a couple of years ago, and you said something like, think about you in years to come when you might go and apply for a job. It's not just you applying for your job, it's you and your co-pilot in your back pocket, which I was like, wow, like how to think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I think you're going to, you know, you and your AI over time are going to form like a duo, you know, because it's almost like a second memory. It's going to be a store of your knowledge, and that, in that sense, I think is going to be massively amplifying, because, you know, just as we don't bother remembering telephone numbers anymore and we don't use the A to Z, and yes, it's true that we lose something by not knowing how to navigate around the physical world, and that would be awesome, but just as the calculator required us not to have to learn from tables and an abacus, I mean, this is just the next evolution, and I think that with a bunch of caveats around how we control it, I think it's going to be pretty incredible to have that level of knowledge and capability in your pocket.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday that even in the last 2 years since the launch of generative AI, we've really seen organisations adopt this technology, and there's some incredible innovations. And you know, you travel the world. I know you speak to a lot of non-profits, a lot of humanitarian organisations. Maybe you could, share a couple of examples of where you're seeing organisations leverage AI to support their missions.
I mean, the most elementary version is to do retrieval over all of your funding documents and your operational documents. I mean, there's now sort of no excuse for not being able to bring that material to life. There's no longer a need to sort of go and read the source material of PDFs and RFIs as your first stop. They'll still be in the citations, they'll be referenced, but all of that material should now dynamically come to life as you interact with it, mediated through your AI or your co-pilot. So I think that's the kind of level one, and huge efficiencies, huge advantages to just having that knowledge at your fingertips and bringing it to life. The second thing I think is in actual service delivery. Like I started a non-profit 20-ish years ago now with 2 or 3 other people, and it was a telephone counseling service that was really basically working with young people like me. I was about 20 at the time, 19, and trying to deliver faith and culturally sensitive counseling in a secular, sort of non-judgmental way. And it's very clear to me now that these models are able to do that, as well as, if not better than, your average helpline trainee. And so I saw a couple of implementations where in real time, during the conversation, a telephone call center operator is being given, suggestions on how to respond in a slightly more empathetic way, or reminders of what was talked about in the last conversation, or signposting to other services that this person might find helpful, or that kind of thing. So I can definitely see it taking a pretty active role in frontline delivery.
If you were, you are a visionary in AI, and if we were sitting here in not 1 year's time, but maybe 5 years' time, how do you hope that AI has really transformed the non-profit sector?
Yeah, I think there is a chance that this is a moment where the sector could pivot to have a revival, to be, super vibrant and attract more and more talent into the sector, knowing that, all of the bits of administration and bureaucracy that make it feel, frustrating or unappealing to be part of a big system really get pushed away. And so that there should be way more time for frontline service delivery,
right,
and really solving the problems that everybody comes into the sector to really address, and not be sort of drowned out by, spending 30–40% of our time or more in administration,
right,
grant management, funding, running the organizations, and so on. I think a lot of that gets pushed into the background, and hopefully that means more time for real service delivery.
I think that's right, and we heard from a couple of nonprofits yesterday who are, already seeing how AI can help free up time for people to do what people can do best. Just perhaps to end on a couple of more fun questions. What's sort of one or two ways that you use AI in your everyday? Whether it's work or personal.
Yesterday we have been flighting a feature called Copilot Vision. And you go into Copilot, start a voice conversation, and you can ask Copilot to put on goggles, and it can see everything in your environment and talk to you about it in real time. It's basically like having a smart person there.
Wow.
And it was just unbelievable. I mean, it was just unbelievable. I pointed it at the mirror, and it's like talking about what I'm wearing and like guessing where I bought it from and talking to me about how I like it.
Did you get a thumbs up?
I did. Yeah, it's very positive. Although I did ask it to roast me as well. So it roasted my sneakers. I won't share it. It was quite embarrassing. I was like, oh, that was pretty good.
Wow.
Seriously. And then I pointed it at this returns label for a box that I was sending back. And I was like, do I need to pay for the postage for this? Because I couldn't figure it out. And it was like, oh yeah, if you look carefully, there's a P/P in the bottom right-hand corner, which means postage paid. I was like, cool. That's actually really helpful. So yeah, try it out. Copilot Vision is awesome. It's only available to 20% of people at the moment, but in a week or so it'll be 100% availability. So you might get lucky and be able to try it today.
That's amazing. I think we need a Mustafa's, weekly top tips or something like that. And just for a last question, I'm going to channel our LinkedIn colleagues here who always ask, what is one thing that you don't have on your LinkedIn profile?
That I don't have? What does that mean? Like a job that I've done that
No, it's just something about you that isn't on your LinkedIn profile.
There's loads of things. I don't really know. What kind of thing would it be? I guess all the sports that I play. I mean, I'm quite into going to the gym, rock climbing, and kickboxing. It's not on there.
Well, that's cool. It's great. Well, we're out of time, but just please join me in thanking Mustafa. And Mustafa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks a lot. That was great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.